Her greatest love, however, in all her career, was Grigory Alexandrovich Potemkin. He's the one with the balalaika down there. He had met Catherine when the putsch against her husband was taking place. He was simply a guards officer, great big strapping, friendly, handsome, happy fellow, and she liked him and he reciprocated, but they didn't get together. Her lover at that time was Grigory Orlov. But finally, she and Potemkin did do what nature calls for, and that brought the two lovers into conflict, Orlov and Potemkin. And there were nasty brawls. One brawl ended when Orlov threw a chair at Potemkin, the leg hit him in the eye and blinded him. He had to wear a patch over his eye after that. The empress called Potemkin my Cyclops. Well, he was an eccentric fellow. He didn't like the court. It was formal and pompous, and he didn't like any of that. He lived privately when he could, as sort of an Asiatic manner, with very carefree and very Russian, and music and women and not much clothing and so on. Well, on court occasions, he could be quite splendid. He wore all his decorations at once when he had to appear publicly. I mean, he simply jingled. Goering had nothing on him. Every decoration he wore. But privately, he was sort of different. And he would do very strange things. Well, he was an eccentric, as I say. For instance, when the empress received foreign dignitaries and other great people at court, she sat on a low dais on her throne, and the court spread out before her with an avenue between for the visitor to come up, bend a knee, salute her, and a few words were exchanged. It was all very formal. And the little stage had two little doors off to the side, which you couldn't see from the front. And on one occasion, she was seated there receiving people, very dignified with their jewels and all the rest of it. Suddenly, from out of the wings came Potemkin, stark naked, dancing out, flapping around in all his hairiness, showing his rear end to the crowd, and just all behind the throne. She couldn't see any of this. She didn't know what they were, but she could see the expressions on everybody else's face. They were simply stricken. And they were suffocating with, Well, this was lovely. She told him later when she found out, don't you ever do anything like that again. He said, I won't. Until next 6 weeks later, he did it again. But he was a cut-up, and she loved him for that as well. Well, I want, a little energy doesn't help. The public policy was concerned over getting the Russian fleet, if they could get it into the Black Sea, from the Black Sea into the Mediterranean. They wanted a Black Sea fleet to penetrate the resource of the Mediterranean. Nobody wanted this. They're still trying to do it. And so, but the Turks controlled all of the Black Sea, all the way around the perimeter of it. And so Potemkin said to Catherine, I will drive the Turks out of the Crimea and free the Dardanelles for our access if you'll give me the army and resources to do it. She never denied him anything, so a huge army and all the resources he needed were provided, and he went down to fit the Battle of the Turks. And it took a little over 2 years. Then he was victorious. He drove the Turks out of the Crimea, and a few years later it was annexed to Russia. Remains so today, or did, till recently. But he did not get in through the Dardanelles. Nevertheless, it was a huge victory. But he liked what he had seen down there, and he sent her a message, I'm going to stay here and work. And in a year or two, I'm going to invite you to come down and see what I've done. I'm going to make this a paradise. Well, anybody that's seen vast stretches of the Crimea, and this is no slur to Kansas or Nebraska, but it's, there are not a lot of natural features that are very exotic, and there was no establishment down there to amount to anything. Very primitive. So Catherine went on about her life, sort of forgot about it, and a year and a half later, an invitation arrived for her and her court to come and see his miracle. Well, they could hardly wait. He provided barges. They were to sail down the Dnieper River through the Crimea. to see everything. And the barges were fitted out for roughing it, with marble floors and fountains and crystal chandeliers and the usual thing. And all the court got aboard, and reporters from Europe heard about this. They all came. They wanted to see too, so they got on. And the barges set sail, and down the river they went. Well, after the first week, everybody was saying, we can't believe it. He's done it. It's just a miracle. Here was a cathedral. Here was a great city rising up in the distance. Here was a beautiful estate with gardens laid out down to the river, charming villages. Every night they stopped at some lovely village and filled with singing, happy, dancing peasants, and were banqueted and fireworks and entertained and all. And week after, it went on forever. Every day, day after day, more miracle. Well, of course, the reporters all rushed back to Europe and told of the wonders of Catherine the Great's Russia. Oh, Catherine the Great. Well, that sounds pretty good when you're empress and you didn't do anything to earn it. And she said, and it's all my precious Grigory's doing. And of course, she made him Prince of Taurida and showered more gold and orders and decorations over his head. Everything was his doing. Well, a few months later, rumors began to spread that the whole thing had been a fraud. That the palaces and the cathedrals and the cities and everything that you saw from the barges were nothing but stage sets. Every night when the royal party stopped at the lovely village, the village was tarted up on the front. All the real peasants were chained in the forest well away. The happy dancing visitor peasants were the Mariinsky Ballet brought down from St. Petersburg to entertain. And at night, while the royal party slept, these stage sets were all folded up, taken down, put on barges, rowed downstream as fast as possible, set up in a new way, repainted on the front. The carpets of lawn rolled out, the whole thing, just the way we do today. Disneyland. Well, Catherine said, in effect, I don't give a damn if it's all true. And it was a fraud. He made me Catherine the Great.